Talking about
Penis
sex.
goes in there.
Subversive idea.
And it warms up.
Talking about sex on Hack.
Oh, yes, we are talking about sex on Hack. Now, listen to this. Have you ever fallen in sex, not love? Check this out.
I feel like I was under the influence of something, that was beyond my control. It was chemical, not physical and mental, and it was like a delusion almost. Like I was ready to do whatever it took.
Can you relate to Kelly's situation? You feel so close to someone through the sex, but you're just not compatible in the rest of your life. Maybe you're in that situation right now and you just haven't realised it. I don't know. Today on Hack, we're talking about the chemistry of sex and how it can make you feel like you're in love when you're really not. We'll also talk about the opposite situation where you really do have a first-rate connection with somebody, but the sex is second-rate. What can you do? This is all part of a week where we're talking non-stop sex across Triple J. And later in the week, we'll find out why girls still lie about their sex count. And you'll also meet some straight guys who dabble in gay sex. All right, let's get into the chemistry of sex and how it makes us feel, well, all kinds of things, and things that Kelly found out didn't really equate with life outside the bedroom.
The minute I saw him, I had this almost electric response, and all I could do was picture him naked, which was very difficult because I was his superior in this particular workplace and I was trying to give him instructions on how to do his job. It was like the best drug in the entire world. He would be in the room. We wouldn't even necessarily have to be touching and the pleasure would kick in. So it was like some kind of high.
As well as that raw pleasure, was there a real sense of bonding?
I thought that's what was happening, and it felt like love because it felt like the most intense pleasure and connection that was possible. So, yes, it felt like bonding and connection and all this other stuff, but later on I realised that that stuff wasn't really there.
How did you realise that?
After a couple of months, I realised that he was pretty closed as a person and didn't really want anything other than NSA fun, which I was happy to commit to at that point because I didn't want to lose my,
feeling.
high. Yeah. But he was saying all these things and I know that I want different things. Also, we were just in really different places in our lives. I'm buying a flat. He doesn't have a job. Well, he did have a job, but it wasn't, he just wasn't settled in his life, and I am.
So there were all these reasons why it couldn't have really worked, but you were sticking on in there.
Yep.
How long were you in the relationship for?
6 months, and then we broke up and then got back together again once after I called him a coward. And then we got back together for a month or so, and then it was over.
When did you realise that it was just the sex and the other part of the relationship just wasn't working?
Before it ended, but it didn't matter to me. So when it ended, I had to convince myself that I believed it wasn't anything. I wanted the high. I didn't want to let go of that. So I was even happy to let go of all of my values to have the continued high of our connection.
So do you feel like your body and the chemistry inside of you kind of tricked you?
Yes. Very much. And I also felt a detox from it. I also felt like lower than I've ever felt. It was harder to let go than it's ever been. I'm more obsessed than I ever have been with another person. And, this was a year ago, and to this day I still want to ring him and say, you sure you don't want to come over one more time? I feel like I was under the influence of something, that was beyond my control. It was chemical, not physical and mental, and it was like a delusion almost. Like I was ready to do whatever it took to keep getting that thing.
Hack. Kelly telling her powerful but confusing experience of falling into sex and not love. Is that something you've experienced, feeling so intimate with someone but then realising it was kind of just a chemical reaction, not the bigger personal connection that you thought you had? How long also, I want to know, is how long did it take you to realise that it was more about the sex and not so much about the love? Give me a call.
Hack 1300 0555 36. Text 0439 75 7555. Triple J.
Hayden, when did you realise that the relationship you just got out of was about sex and not so much more?
Not too long ago, actually, about a month or so.
And was that after you'd broken up?
Well, the funny thing is didn't turn out to quite be a relationship that I thought it was.
It was a bit more casual and uncertain than you realised?
Yeah, I was completely blindsided by that and was shocked to sort of find out the ugly truth, really.
Yeah, well, we're going to find out a bit more about the truth now, Hayden. Clearly there's something going on inside of us when we have sex. It does draw us nearer and nearer to somebody. But what is it exactly, and why does it get such a hold on us? As Claire Ed reports, it's biology, baby.
This is a story of boy meets girl.
It's all so romantic, isn't it? Your eyes lock, your hearts race, and you feel like you're going to explode. Pure chemistry. Well, actually biology and evolution, which means there's a whole lot going on behind that attraction.
Well, that physical attraction comes from ancient evolved mechanisms that cause us to do what's good for us and what's good for our genes, I guess, what's going to allow us to be successful at reproducing.
Professor Rob Brooks is the director of the Evolution and Ecology Research Centre at the University of New South Wales.
Part of what we like is we're reacting to the smell of somebody's immune system. We like the smell of people who have got different genes in important parts of the immune system to us. But it also helps us have children who are going to have a very diverse immune system.
Professor Brooks also says that what we're attracted to is a hangover of the past. Men are keen on youth because it signals reproductive potential, while women are typically looking for a provider and protector. Think a square jaw and broad shoulders. The good news is not everyone is attracted to the same thing.
There is a tremendous amount of variation. So we might be able to say that, Miranda Kerr or someone like that has a particularly attractive face. But that particularly attractive face, not everybody likes faces exactly like that. Some people like slightly more masculine faces and some people like slightly less masculine faces.
Professor Brooks says there's also a massive natural high associated with the so-called chemistry that keeps us coming back for more.
But one of the side effects they have is that when you fall in love, when you first have that crazy, mad, obsessive thing, you've got at least two important chemicals. One is serotonin, another one dopamine involved. Now, serotonin drops just the way it drops in somebody who's anxious or depressed, and so that creates that obsessive part of love. But the other side, which is dopamine, and you get this big shot of dopamine, which is just like a shot of cocaine. I'm told.
As for keeping us together, after the high, there are two key hormones at play. Now, these are oxytocin and vasopressin. Both are released during orgasm and increase feelings of attachment. But they're not always experienced in the same doses.
Now, vasopressin is very important in maintaining the pair bond, in maintaining monogamy between couples. And there are some men whose receptors for vasopressin aren't really doing the best possible job. And those men very quickly lose interest in their partner, lose interest in being good partners.
So does that mean some people are more hardwired to cheat?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There are plenty of people biologically who are more inclined to cheat. There are also your circumstances can alter your inclination to cheat. You start off together and you might be very well matched, but if one person's sort of sexual capital increases, they become very powerful, or they grow into their looks and they become very attractive. And so there is a difference between the members of the couple in terms of how attractive they are to members of the opposite sex. The more attractive one is more likely to cheat.
Wow, so much science going on. But even Professor Brooks admits at the end of the day, it's a balance between physical and social compatibility.
If you end up with somebody and after 3 or 4 weeks together with them with all, fantastically wonderful sex, etc., you find out that really politically you're incompatible, or the way that you look at starting a family and who's going to do the work, etc., is completely incompatible. Well, that's why it falls apart in a lot of cases.
Hack. Triple J. Claire Ed reporting. And one person has texted in on 0439 75 7555 saying, I was in sex, now I'm in love. I can never get both. Why, Jess? And that's a question I'll put straight to you, Cindy Darnell, sex therapist. I nearly said sex pest. I don't know where I was going with that. But someone who seems like they can't get one or the other. Is that a situation that people come to you with very commonly?
Certainly, I think younger people particularly can find that as they're learning about themselves, as they're learning about their new friend, their new partner, that the process of understanding what's going on initially within themselves is one thing. And then when you throw that into the mix with someone else who's got their own set of stuff going on, it can certainly lead to all kinds of, I don't want to say problems, but it can certainly lead to lots of questions that come up that need to be addressed in order to see whether or not the relationship has a future. Or what you can do about it to alter the direction that it's going if perhaps you feel that it's not going in the way that you want it to.
Simona, this is something you can relate to. How's your relationship going at the moment?
Oh, look, it's up and down, and I think this is the problem I'm finding moving forward, being in a relationship where it's completely based on a physical aspect of, a sexual chemistry that you share. You feel conflicted. You feel like you don't want to let go of something that good, but then again, the politics of it is that legitimately, they're not compatible with you on any other level other than a sexual level.
So you know that for sure? You know that it won't work on any other level?
You never say anything for sure, but I've attempted to, try and open his eyes to the situation and see whether he can see it through the same eyes as me, and it's almost like we're coming from two completely different perspectives. So
who sees more potential in the relationship side of it, you or him?
I think he does, but I think that's because I'm a better catch.
Wow, there it is.
No, to be honest, I'm studying at university.
You've got it going on. Okay, we get the point, Simona.
I've got it all happening. All right, okay, glad. But he's sort of, at the moment, in between jobs, sort of doesn't know where he wants to go in his life, and that scares the shit out of him.
So he wants to hang on to you for that life stuff, and you want to hang on to him because he's great in bed.
Well, no, that's a really blunt way of putting it, but yeah, I guess that's the way. Normally the women seek the security in the men by being the provider and all these sorts of things. I guess this is almost a role reversal. Very
interesting, Wayne. Your relationship started out as pure sex, a bit like Simona's, but you've actually married that girl.
That's correct. Yeah, we met and going at it like rabbits for probably about 4 or 5 months.
Did you just say that, Wayne?
I did.
Yeah, thanks. Great.
But we understood that to make it go further, we had to connect on a more intellectual level. And so that's what we worked towards. We stopped, we slowed our actions down and actually became friends and got to know each other and found out that we did like each other.
So was it something really that you had to actually bring out into the open and talk about, or did that just happen naturally?
No, we definitely had to talk about it because our relationship was quite stale at the time. I was on holidays and met her, so I was just having a good time. And then when I left holidays, I realised that maybe I could do something further with this. So we got it back in contact and, became friends and then developed a more intellectual relationship while still continuing a physical relationship. And, now we're married with 2 kids. So.
Wayne, all the answers, incredible. Thanks so much for the call.
All right, Tom. Catch you later.
Catch you, mate. We are talking about falling into sex more than love. And one person says, I've confused sex with love before, especially the first person you sleep with. You think you're madly in love because you've never been that physically close to another person. Another person says, I fell in sex with my ex. We went out for 5 years, although I should have ended it 2 years earlier. He was horrible to me outside the bedroom, but I was blinded by our sexual chemistry. Thank God it's over. And you are listening to a bit of a sex special on Triple J all this week. And on Hack, we're talking about falling into sex. And in the studio, I have Cindy Darnell, who's a Melbourne-based sexual therapist. Cindy, in those big wave of emotions and chemicals, can it be really hard to tell what's going wrong with your relationship sometimes when the sex is so good?
Absolutely. It's really easy to get blindsided by anything that's exciting, and when cracks start to show, we often don't want to admit to ourselves that there might be something wrong, and we tend to want to just hang on and hope for the best, that it's going to remain as fabulous as it was at the beginning. And very, very rarely are relationships able to sustain that kind of of drive and that passion for a really long time. So it is something that in most relationships, regardless of your gender or your orientation, those kinds of things come up. Once that real high starts to wear off, you're left often with the bare bones of what you've got, and at that point you do need to reconsider, well, what are we doing here?
Do you think those bare bones can be even more hollow than other situations because you've gone so deep with this person on this physical, emotional, chemical level, and then you don't know them that well, but it's hard to get to know them because you're kind of very vulnerable to them?
Yeah, I mean, certainly sex is one way that we can become really intimate with another person, that even if the conversation is not often particularly intimate, the sheer fact that you're really, naked with another person, that you're really exposed, and that you're touching people touching your lovers in ways that you wouldn't touch normal people, can certainly create that sense of intimacy, that sense of security, that warm, fuzzy feeling that we all want. And it is hard to admit sometimes when that does start to break down and we realise that this person is not perhaps the person I thought they were or the person that I want them to be, when we actually start seeing them for who they really are, and then we decide, oh, maybe you're not the person I want to be with. That can be a particularly difficult situation, as distinct from a situation where you have an attachment to getting a promotion and you find out that you don't get that. It's a slightly different
stories,
set of situations.
A lot more going on inside your body. And one person has texted in saying, I'm so in love with my man and we have the best sex, but lately my libido has just gone. Like I just couldn't be bothered. And that is a situation we're going to address in just a moment on Hack.
Talking about sex on Hack.
On Hack. Yeah, it's pretty obvious. We are talking non-stop sex. You are listening to Triple J's Hack program. All this week across the station, we're talking about sex. And if you jump onto the Hack website, you'll see that I've been out talking sex with lots of you at the recent Laneway Festival. And I was asking some pretty curly questions. So jump onto the triplej.net.au Hack website. That's triplej.net.au/hack. And check out how people answer my questions. Now, earlier in the show, you heard Kelly's story about how sex led her into a relationship that wasn't really working. What about the opposite situation where the relationship stuff, the intellectual connection, the emotional connection, the social stuff is all going really well, your sense of humour even, but it is just not happening in the bedroom. On that level, it just doesn't work. And the sexual chemistry is the obvious missing link. Claire Ed reports.
I fell in love with his mind, and he was just such a beautiful person.
Megan and Brad were the closest of mates for 2 years before they became a couple.
Unfortunately, I wasn't attracted to him. I did find attributes very attractive, like he had wonderful eyes and just the way he treated me with so much respect. He was just amazing, and I could see him being the father of my children, but unfortunately our sex life was pretty much non-existent. Sometimes we would go for a couple of months without even touching each other. I think about 6 months into the relationship, he wondered what was going on, and I pretty much told him, how I wasn't sexually attracted to him, and, maybe we should break up if that's what he wanted. We decided to go to a sex therapist. We spent probably thousands of dollars in therapy just trying to figure out why I couldn't be attracted to him. In the end, we just kind of gave up on all the therapy, and I just decided to myself, I loved him so much that, I was willing to sacrifice the sexual side of things.
But Brad wasn't, and unbeknownst to Megan, he found it outside of the relationship.
And I found 2 condom wrappers. So that's how I discovered that he was cheating. And then when I confronted him about it, he broke down in tears, and I broke down in tears. It's a relief now that I'm looking at it. I think, I'm a lot happier, and my life's been on quite a few dates, and I do find the chemistry is all there. So I'm really looking for someone now that's got that intellectual chemistry that we can just talk about anything and have that best friend mentality, but also someone who is just gorgeous, and I do want to jump on them.
Sometimes I meet women who will say, he's my best friend in every way, but we just don't really have the sex part figured out. We don't really have that. I don't really have that passion for him.
Dr. Ian Kerner is a sex and relationships counsellor and author based in New York. He says Megan's experience isn't uncommon.
I think there absolutely is such a thing as physical chemistry and excitement, and I think chemistry happens on a whole lot of levels that are some are perceptible and some are imperceptible.
We're biologically hardwired to find some people attractive and others not. Smell, looks and hormones all play a part. But evolutionary biologist Professor Rob Brooks from UNSW says sometimes things you wouldn't expect can get in the way.
One of which is just the products that we use. Other things that can affect the way that we respond to these smell cues include the pill. So a woman who takes the pill, her body thinks that she is pregnant, and so it fails to cycle in the normal way that a non-pregnant body would. And when you're pregnant, you're not looking for a mate. You're certainly not looking for that, short, highly romantic, very quick mating with somebody who's got fantastic genes, because you're already pregnant.
Dr. Ian Kerner says it's also about your sexual compatibility, and there are two different types of people in the bedroom.
Comfort creatures who really sort of enjoy the same bed, the same few positions, the same person. I think the other type are what I would call thrill seekers and need a sort of a constant stream of novelty and stimulation. It usually works out when you have two thrill seekers who are together or two comfort creatures, but when you have two people who are kind of on opposite ends of the spectrum, it can be difficult to reconcile.
A lot of the time, though, Dr. Kerner comes across people whose chemistry spark has fizzled and they're about to exit the relationship.
For so many years, one of the things that I really think that couples don't really exploit is all the erotic potential that still exists within their relationship if they were willing to work at it a bit, if they were willing to mix up their routine. There's so much erotic potential that just gets left on the table.
Erotic potential left on the table. What a way to finish. That is Dr. Ian Kerner from New York there. Speaking to Claire Aird, one person has texted in saying, "My husband and I were virgins until marriage and I regret none of it. I reckon that you can work on sex, and if both of you are willing, anything can work, but you have to want to be in that relationship." Well, I'd love to know if you've ever had everything going on with someone except the sex. It just wasn't that good. And I want to know, was that sexual chemistry problem a deal breaker, or could you actually work through it? Give me a call.
Hack 1300 0555 36. Text 0439 75 7555. Triple J.
Sarah's called in from Perth. Sarah, you're going to tell your husband of 3 years tomorrow that you have to break up because the sexual chemistry's not there.
Yeah, well, hopefully not in those exact words, but I'll definitely have to allude to it. That's the reason, yeah.
How long have you been waiting to do this?
Well, we've actually been together for 5 years, so pretty much the last 4 years I've kind of known that it hasn't been there, but I just thought I was kind of going through a lull until recently I met somebody else, and that's when I realised. Yeah.
Did you have sex with that other person?
Yes.
So you'll have to break that news to your husband as well?
Uh-huh, yep.
How do you feel about having to do that?
Well, I feel pretty bad, but I also feel free.
I guess something like this must have been on your mind a lot over the last 4 years.
Yeah, definitely, especially in the last 12 months. Yeah, definitely.
So it sounds like you really gave it a go. Did you guys really try and work on your sex life? Was it something you were able to talk about?
Yeah, we did. And we have talked about it, and we have definitely tried certain things, but I think the spark just died, and, and like emotionally and intellectually we still connect, which is the really hard thing. And I feel with this other guy, it's like we can connect emotionally, but it's mainly a physical thing that's been missing in my life. And, and he's just like, he's a drop-dead gorgeous guy, but necessarily intellectually we don't really have that same connection.
So are you worried about trading one for the other?
Yeah, I guess that's on my mind a little bit at the moment, but I don't know, I just see a lot of my friends, they live quite unfulfilled marriages, and I just don't want to do that.
All right, Sarah. Well, that's an incredible situation. I hope you can deliver that news in a way tomorrow that doesn't completely crush your husband's sense of self-worth and sexual identity. All the best, and thanks so much for the call.
Cheers, thank you.
Hack with Tom Tilley on Triple J.
Such a full-on story there. And Simon, you can relate to that one. You think just because the sex isn't that great, the relationship can still be worth it.
Yeah, well, like, the relationship's, like, absolutely fantastic. I mean, it's been over a year, and we were having lots and lots of sex, but in the last couple of months it's just completely dropped off. But still completely happy. Like, I'm not worried about it or anything. I expect it will turn back on at some stage, and just kind of waiting for that to happen.
Do you know why it's not working so well lately?
No idea. I don't know. It's just like it's not like a want thing at the moment. Like, I still kind of get the urges and the feelings, but just kind of not ever at the right time or something. I don't know. It's just
So is it you that's not feeling it, or her?
Well, she's never kind of been an initiator, and I think that's kind of part of it. Like, because she's never kind of initiated it. Like, she might want it, but she won't make it known. And
okay, Simon, how long will you live with the situation as it is before you decide that maybe you have to break up?
I don't know. It's a tough question. I don't know. I guess when I start to really want it, then that's when I start really worrying about it. Yeah.
All right, Simon, thanks so much for your call.
Cheers.
Such intense situations there for Simon, but particularly for Sarah, who we heard from earlier, who's going to tell her husband when he gets home tomorrow that it's over because the sex wasn't working. In the studio, I have Cindy Darnell, a sex therapist. Cindy, does she have to break up with her husband, or is there a way that they could have somehow worked harder on their sex life?
Well, I wouldn't say that she absolutely has to break up with her husband, but she certainly sounds like she's made up her mind. The fact that she's citing that the bad sex is the reason for the breakup, without talking to her, I'd sort of want to explore a bit more around that. It really is that the only reason, because that, I think, having a connection in every other way, and if it's only the sex that is a problem, then that I do believe is salvageable. And as the other callers have mentioned, that they have had to dedicate time to have conversations and to be open and to be clear about what it is that they want and what they would like to change. These are certainly the stepping stones, the beginning processes that one would go through in order to reignite some kind of passion in the relationship. In Sarah's case, though, she sounds like she's been working at it for quite some time, and she says she's been to therapy, that she's talked, she's tried, and she's also started seeing somebody else. So in that situation, she's come into it pretty much with her mind already made up that she wants to leave, and she also cited her friends' relationships, that she sees other people living in what she believes to be unfulfilled relationships. She doesn't want that for herself. And on that level, I have to commend her to say, even though perhaps she's gone about it in a slightly surreptitious way.
Yeah, it's going to hurt big time tomorrow.
Yeah, but she has taken responsibility for her feelings to a degree, and how she processes it with her husband.
And how she delivers it will be so full on.
That's a particularly sensitive situation.
Yeah. Let's go to Ange. Ange, you and your boyfriend are working out right now whether you should stay together or not.
Yeah, it's been really strange. It seems like in the last couple of weeks we've brought the issue to something that we can talk about together, and now every time I turn on the radio somebody's talking about people that are having problems with their sex life.
Sorry, Ange.
No, that's fine. I actually... I am a therapist by trade, if you will, and interested in getting into the area of possibly sex therapy and also working with couples. And so took myself off to a training session this week that actually ended up being more about me than learning skills. And it was a 4-day training workshop with a whole group of people around mindfulness and sex. And I have to say that he and I have never had chemistry together.
Yeah, that's so full on. I just want to get a quick question, Ange, to our guest, Cindy. How far can you go when the chemistry's not great? Just very quickly, Cindy.
Look, it depends on what else is going on in the relationship and how much energy you have to put into it, basically, would be the short answer to that question. If the chemistry is not there, but you're really, really committed to staying in it, it does take a lot of work. It is possible, but it might not be easy.
Cindy, thanks so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
That's Cindy Darnell, a Melbourne-based sex therapist.
Why don't you stick your tongue up my...
It's Sex Week. Sex. Talking about sex on Hack.
Yes, we are. And all this week we'll be talking about sex. Tomorrow on the show, we're going to be talking about why some young women still lie about their sex count.
I think that I'm always, like, in the back of my mind, I never want to seem like promiscuous or anything like that, because you do actually get judged for it as much as people say that it doesn't affect anything, and like women's liberal feminism and all that means you can do whatever you want, but you will, I think, people do judge you for it.
The double standard is still there. We'll be back at 5:30 tomorrow. Linda Mariano is up next. Thanks so much for all your calls and texts today. That was very interesting. And good luck to Sarah in Western Australia breaking that news tomorrow. Full on. Catch you later.